Yes?
The module for the recording is different.
Yeah, I've just tried to set it up. It's not working. And what's worse is my camera is not really aligned either. This may be a strange object, but again, we are recording here as well the voice and kind of the slides, so you can go back. Is there something?
Yeah.
Hello, please join us. Yeah, so hint to me if there's somebody like desperately trying to signal. So this is a module that you're hopefully studying. Oh, I should really put the code as well, my apologies. So this is 70 KB 7032, Project Organizations and Information Management. And it's really divided into two big groupings, all to do with organizational communication. So in the past, I have been criticized for not having a textbook. So this time I tried to, oh, my slides were not liked. So this time I tried to kind of address that. It's a critical approach to organizational studies. Now we use that as a basis. Be careful, you will see this is very theoretical. Hello, join us. Okay, so this was maybe a little bit ambiguous. It was an already. So it's kind of the key reading, and you will see it's this time not so much voluntary to read it, but it's really set assignments for reading. I'll show you in a second. Yeah. So I really want to use this. There are two simple reasons behind it. Our profession, if you want, of project management has received recently a lot of heat regarding uncriticality of project managers in the industry. Now we will use that as a basis. So it will ground kind of a lot of the approaches that we use on a daily basis in its theoretical and kind of scientific setting. So you will see here we are talking a lot about project control. We will become very aware of the power that we actually have as a project manager and look critically at that. How can we use this maybe responsible, or if we are pressured, how can we actually turn that momentum around to be a good negotiation partner, to recognize as well how we can interact with our organization. Now for that we will have to find as well with some definitions. So today I give you a little bit a background to why we're actually doing this, and then introduce the theoretical underpinning. Now this is a little bit heavy, so make sure you're following the reading assignments to kind of get the background, the examples, and in the seminars you will see we will try to work with discussions.
Sorry, what's the name of the author? Sorry.
It's all there, so let me bring it up. So well, let's do it the other way around. So this is kind of the key author. You have the books in the library, so you don't have to buy it. You can just rent it. You will see in the library we have 3 kind of weak copies of the. Why is it doing that? Of the 2017 version. So there's a 2017 version of this book too, but at the moment this has not been delivered. So this is just the review versions that I got.
Is there a soft copy?
Soft copy. I haven't actually checked. Hello, join us, please. We can do. Let me have a look. Willingness. With a little bit luck. Yeah, so you have as well a reading list. So this would be the reading list. And this is so my reading list. So let's have a look if this has worked. Oh, this is not the updated version. Okay, I have to publish the updated version. So be with me, you will have it as well on your ELP. So you will see in the task list, book list, so we should have an electronic copy as usual. I have noticed that this is sometimes a little bit painful. I think you can only print a few pages if you like a hard copy. But again, so the soft copy may work as well. So that is kind of our core reading, and to talk you quickly through it. So this is actually our syllabus. Why has it done that? Okay, this didn't really help. So we start kind of with an introduction and an overview of the module, or why we actually look at organizational communication. So it's a very specific topic if you think about it. Yeah, but I will actually argue that by organizing our communication, we can actually steer and control projects. And by that definition, we can as well understand how people want to collaborate with us and interact with us. So communication here goes a lot wider than what you probably understand traditionally under communication. So, for example, communication technology, and this is slightly weird, you will read in this chapter, is for example a microscope, yeah? or binoculars to look in the distance. Yeah? So because it's enhancing your communicative awareness of new things, your sensory body. Yeah, but when we come to that later, so this is something that Mohamed Kassem will actually cover with you. He looks at the basics of information communication technologies and kind of dives a little bit further in this. But today we really just start by looking at a few examples, try to make sense of it. What is actually an organization? What are your organizational issues? We all belong to organizations. This is what I will argue. And we have a quick question round and see what actually are the dominant topics to us, to familiarize what that actually means. So as individuals, we are part of organizations. What does that mean? Yeah? And then again, we kind of conclude with organizational issues. I have here as well the coursework specifications, so I will introduce you as well to your coursework, what you will be assessed on this academic year. Yeah? It's a fun combination of a co-authored article, yeah, so you can either write it in a pair or you can write it by yourself. This is your choice. And there is to be some form of primary research. So, but we will come to that in week 3 when we have a look what that actually means. So our seminars kind of allude as well around of building our report or paper. Yeah? So if you work along with the assignments and the seminars, you should have your paper actually finished in week 6 or 7. Yeah. So, but I hope that will make sense later. Now the topics that we will cover, as already kind of implicit to the information management, we have a little bit a look what information communication technologies actually are nowadays, what we perceive as such. Yeah, so what are actually the conscious, let's do the game. What is ICT to you? Can you name some information communication technologies? What do you use? Email, yeah? So this is one. So writing a letter in electronic format, yeah, if you want. Other ones?
SharePoint.
Yeah, sorry?
SharePoint.
Yeah, so to share files, yeah, it's kind of a storage device if you want, where you kind of can share designated files, yeah, or as well communications, logs, yeah. Other ones, more traditional ones? Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, so what does Facebook do?
Messenger is a wall like of your communication to multiple people.
Okay, but this is Facebook in addition, right? So you're quite right. So there's Messenger, but what do we do on Facebook? It's not just communicating, right? We do actually a lot more there. What do we communicate on Facebook?
Knowledge.
Share our, yeah, okay, so there's maybe knowledge implication, but it's more, right? Facebook, it's something to do with identity, right?
We share our life on Facebook.
Yeah, is it really our life?
Basically, for some people.
Yeah, yeah, so I tried to do this, yeah, I've just been combining holiday with looking after our collaborative ventures, so I've been in Singapore, Hong Kong, a little bit in Bali, yeah, just to round it up. And so then people always say like, wow, Roberts, your life is amazing. They don't know that I woke up this morning at 3:30 and was really hyped up and was like, why is it still dark outside? Yeah, so that's a different dimension to it. Yeah, whoever traveled the long distance, you will have experienced jet lag. Yeah, this is not visible on Facebook. Yeah, not quite. So it's not really our identity. Yeah, but there's some form of identity. So it's maybe a projective identity. It's very powerful. So we have a look at this at ICT, but you will see Mohammed will take it very applied to the project scenario. What are actually the ICT solutions that we use? And you will be surprised. Identity, and I will argue directed power. It's a very strong thing. We have done something that we call a profession, which is the motto of you have to kind of change your life. So this is the career mission, but we will come to that. Then we have a little bit a look at strategic management in information systems. So how can we use this? Is it actually suitable to always embrace information models and so forth? This is again with Mohammed. Then we have a look at information modeling and the information exchange itself. So again, you don't have, this is just a snapshot. Then we look at the digital representation with virtual reality, visualization. Depending on what industry you're working in, this is one of the strongest communication tools. Visualization, so people can actually imagine and relate to it. Now then, he covers as well very briefly knowledge management, but be very careful. This is a very pragmatic way of looking as well at information exchange. And then he rounds up by organizational learning. Now then, we come back to me, and here we are starting with a critical perspective. Now this is not, although this is a theoretical underpinning, here we are looking actually at leadership. What are the current models? How do we lead a team? Do we have actually a team in-house? How is our organization set up? So we're looking a little bit at internal and external stakeholders. But this doesn't have to make sense yet. Then we have as well a little bit a look at the history of the modern organization. Where did this actually come from? Why did we have large kind of all in-house companies in the past? And why do we have hardly any of the large companies nowadays? Why do we all work kind of on a self-promoting enterprise? We are all kind of career organized, and we are suitable to being part of a project team. So we are trading here with different ideas. Now this leads then to the human relationships school. Again, here we are covering still leadership, but here we are looking at the cultural dimension. How do we relate to each other? What is our cultural underpinning? And this goes then as well into power and resistance at work. This is not so much like demonstrating on the street, but this may be simple inhibitors to performing according to set goals. In projects, we often try to achieve a shared goal that is set. But do we really all share the goal? What are the inhibitors? Where is resistance coming from? I don't want to give too much examples here. And then we look at organizations as communication systems. So it's a systems idea, and here leading as well to communication, culture, and organizing. So be very careful. Here we are looking at kind of cultures of communicating. Here we are looking actually at culture of the individuals. So this is a different game. So one is like kind of looking at values, identity, and the other one is looking at communication preferences. It interrelates, but there's certainly a different spin to it. Now in week 8, we come to leadership communication in new workplaces. So we look at dynamics of new information systems, and as well and how we're relating actually to each other. Here again, kind of expanding in this situation in terms of again, meaningfulness of work, personal identity. So you're working nowadays not just with a team that is recruited together. Well, it still exists. So don't get me wrong. I was just in Singapore, and we had a look at a big construction project as an example. And you could see that they're still working with flexible labor, that they kind of recruit in the morning. So there's a point where people meet. If you want to do work, then you wait there, and then kind of the foreman picks you up and trains you basically on the job, and they kind of work on site, get paid on day, and happy at the end of the day. Or exhausted, I don't know, probably either. But so this still exists, but there's as well another side. So we have now careers, we have studied, we have kind of developed a specialism, expertise. This means we have an identity as well around our professional life, which is very important and which is a different game. If you're communicating, then there's a different implication on how we organize, how we kind of create the communications, and accountabilities as well. Yeah? So it has as well to do with how you can control them, or vice versa, how you are controlled by them. Yeah? So it's an exchange here. By the way, power over resist. Yeah? So it goes in both directions. Yeah? Then we have as well, this is quite a jump. Here we go in postmodernism, post-Fordism, and a new workplace. So we have to first recognize that we still have theorems where we talk about effectiveness and efficiency in terms of a scientific thing. Oh, we can sequence this, the machine can do it so quick, and then if my work team on site does it at the same speed, then we can deliver just in time. Yeah? This is a lean argument. Now this is controversial nowadays, because there's as well a question of can we actually achieve that as humans, or will the machines outrun us? Yeah, so there are interesting arguments to be visited, and we have a look at what that actually means, how our project interaction changes if we work with automation, if we work with AI, so artificial intelligence, or actually semi-automated processes. So we do this already a lot. You may, the typical example is if you work in any kind of production line, you will see there are some machines on the way that help you in the production. Yeah, or as well if you have worked in any digitalized modeling, design model, the software runs a check for bugs. Yeah, if you have created new dimensions or something doesn't work, it will flag it up to you. Yeah, so that we have already automated a few things. Yeah, most often we try to do so with the labor. Yeah, so if it's something that we consider unhealthy. So on the construction side, this is maybe the digger, the excavator, or the truck. And we can go in any kind of production. In the steel factory, it's a machine, the assembly line, that actually has machines to lift the steel. So we could go on this. But those were a few machines, just to give you an example. Now, there is as well a recognition of communicating differences at work. Now, this is very modern topics. This is people have different requirements to live like a fulfilled life. And so some people want to have flexible work hours. Now, is this good for us as a project manager or bad? What does it require? Now, many people think like, okay, we don't employ those people, but there's an inherent problem. People that are specialists or have expertise, we can see they have often as well very demanding requirements. Sometimes they are interested in incentives, like more pay, so this can be one. But others want to have actually free time to spend it with their family. Yeah? So in some cases, this may look like a future scenario. In some cases, that may look like, oh, this is our pet. But those are kind of hot topics as well in the area. Then we have as well elements of globalization and democracy. So we look at the interface of project management to society. Yeah? And whilst projects have achieved wonderful things, so there are really improvements that projects have brought about, projects have as well created disconnects from communities and led artifacts of how not to do it. But we can study both and have a look at them. And then last but not least, we have as well communicating gender at work. This is again not so contemporary, but in the last 15 years, we have a very strong recognition that in many organizations we do gender biases. It has to do with how we grow up, how we communicate. So we have actually built in gender into our work organization communications. A simple example is in Germany we have a strange reform, now strange to me because I grew up in a system where all the titles with professor or administration would be male. Now in Germany they have renamed this all in female. Yeah, so by default now all the titles are female. Now this has really confused a lot of people. For me this is still entertaining because I'm not living in this German-speaking area anymore. But for most people this has really changed the mindset. So it has shown as well that leadership positions or higher ranks can be inherited by everybody in a rational kind of competition for who's best and best suited for the job. Now still there's a mechanism of power, so you have to compete on competence or whatever best means, but still it's changing the organization. Now after that we have the critical elements away and we have covered topics like leadership, how to organize departments versus project organizations. So those are the hidden underlinings, and you will see we do this with a handbook that you can work through in your own time. So even if you feel you want to get started with your paper, It's on the ELP. You can work through it. This is all targeted at the project organization. Yeah. What is a project organization against a normal organization? How would you see the difference there? Anybody an idea? What's the difference? This was a tough one, right? Yeah, you could argue it's the same, yeah. But is there a substantial difference between, for example, a business and a project? What's the difference?
Specific goal.
Yeah.
Specific goal.
Yeah. So it's specific. So the business may try to achieve long-term goals, yeah, if they are good, yeah, or they have a strategic intent. And a lot of organizations are built to be sustained, yeah. Whilst projects may just try to deliver something specific and cease to exist as an organization. Yeah? So often it's a temporality, yeah? So meaning that it's a time-restricted organization, yeah, and a purposeful set one. Yeah? But you will see most businesses have some form of purpose or have identified something while they're set up, yeah? And we will have a look at it. Okay, so this was the content. This doesn't have to make sense yet, so you will see this actually corresponds to the chapters rather than the project-relevant topics that we will discuss. So you will see there are reading assignments with the chapters. We make most chapters, but I will give you as well the sections. So don't just read the whole book, because you will see there's a lot as well about society, which is interesting theoretically, but this is really a theoretic book. So here we are kind of trying to understand what we can actually say we know. Yeah, what is actually the, I don't want to come into a truth and false argument, but what is important in this book is it really gives you an insight what you can actually claim from information that you're collecting. Yeah? And it's a hot topic. Because what do we have at the moment? What is one of the major issues with media, information? Is there too little? So I give you an example. When I was in my German research institute, I did my master dissertation there. I wrote a standard about concrete, the most exciting topic as you can imagine. And we had a library that was like massive. Yeah? It's, so just to give you an idea, Northumbria and Newcastle, this is the same size as the city of my German Federal Institute of one department, the whole city. Just in buildings. And we would have a substantial library as well, but it wouldn't be electronic, so this would be the painful side. We had already the internet, but you would go in and then a librarian would present you with your reading. And that would be a physical frightening experience. That would be like a bookshelf. And you would ask, which section? No, the whole bookshelf. And this was your summer commitment. And it was fun, yeah, so I read it all, well, kind of selective, yeah. So I made my way through it, and then we noticed there was a reference, oh my gosh, somebody else in Switzerland and somebody else in Japan has done it too. Now then my librarian would be on the phone with the library of this university and ask, hey, can you post out the hard copy? We need it as quickly as possible. And then they would say that, no problem, we have really made it more efficient. You will have it in 4 weeks. And I would be sent with the post, and then I would get it, and I would realize it's written in Japanese, so English was okay. But again, then we would ask, is there a translation? And they would say, yeah, the professor has written a paper on it. And then, so you can see, yeah, information was difficult to come by. This is the point, yeah. Is this still the case? Yeah, partly, yeah. Well, how do you get nowadays reading? If you're looking for something? Yeah, you don't have to know it yet. We will cover this as well in this topic, in this module, but how would you look for information? Google it, yeah? Alternatives? Like, oh yeah, okay, this is already good answers. I like them a lot, yeah. But Google is fine too. Other ones? So traditionally, the alternative is as well, ask your boss, yeah, or your line manager. Then at least you don't go the wrong direction, yeah. But again, so Nowadays we can Google it, and what is a problem? Do we still know if the information is authentic or like well researched? It's actually tricky, right? So nowadays we are actually fighting with information availability, and it's very difficult to pick what is the relevant information to us, yeah? Unless we do the trial and error ourselves. And this is as well what we are looking at here. We are looking critically, how can we actually decide what information is relevant for us, or what can we actually say from it. Now, organizational studies have tried to establish this for quite some time, and this is as well what we will cover in this topic. Yeah. Okay, so I hope this gave you a little bit an overview. So we have assigned readings, and then you have two tutors. One is Mohamed Kassem, and one is Robert Müller, me myself. Yeah, and then you have the coursework specification issued now. Then in week 3, you have to confirm to me by email if you want to write your article by yourself or in a pair. Yeah, so you can decide that. If you pair up, you will see there's a practical part and there's a theoretical part. Then try to pair up maybe with somebody where you have a synergy in terms of access or availability. If you haven't got work experience, not a problem, you can just do a survey with your friends, or we can use one of the sessions to kind of make the topic that you have chosen as a debate topic. Yeah? So I rely as well on you to come up with a topic, and then that we can actually look into it and discuss it meaningfully. Yeah? So this is as well an option, you will see that actually. So here you have the topic, and you can actually start authoring your article. Yeah, you have a draft submission on the 9th of March 2017, and this accounts for only 10%, which is a questionable amount. Yeah, this is, but again, yeah, so 10% given for that, just a submission, and then there's a peer review, which gives you as well 10%. So again, you get here peer review from your peers. Yeah. Again, this is not so much about, this is a good article, I like it a lot, but we have actually set criteria where we literally peer review the article. Yeah, so we are looking at the theory, at the practical application, how well it's interlinked, and how well the criticality has been embraced. Yeah? Now the final paper is actually submitted after you get the feedback back. You have another week to edit it, and then you see you have a week kind of to prepare for a final paper presentation. So again, if you're in pairs, you can do it together, or you can decide one does the presentation. If you do it alone, you have to do the paper presentation. But you will see this is the last Friday of the semester, so it's as well as socializing afterwards and a close-up, so there will be as well lunch provided and everything. And you will see as well the invisible students, so you will meet as well the DL students. So we have as well distance learning students, they will come for that as well. So they will potentially peer review your paper, so then you can find as well out who was it that gave you actually the peer review feedback. Yeah. And then this is it. Yeah, you have the spring break. We don't have any assessments in the assessment period in this module. I'm not sure about the other ones. So I take it I'm the first module, so you will see it as you go along. Yeah, and this is it for that module. Any questions so far? Yes?
So the assignment is basically we have to write our own research paper and then present it.
Yes. It's a conference paper. Yeah. Yeah, spot on. So it's peer reviewed and then finally presented. And you will see that for those of you that go for the dissertation project and don't want to write the dissertation, you can actually write a conference paper. So this is kind of the preparation for it. This is as well why we look at literature, what literature is actually meaningful to us, how can we read papers quickly or meaningful quickly, and then how can we actually make claims from the papers. Yeah, and then last but not least, what can we then actually research and say what is actually valid to us. Yeah. Okay. Shall we do now the assessment as well quickly, or shall we do that rather later, that you can digest this first? Who wants to do the assessment now? Okay. So we run through with it before we start. Okay. So it's divided into two assessment parts. So this is number one. Now this is all to do with writing the research paper. So it has actually three components. First is a full draft submission by the 9th of March for peer review. This is only 10% of 80%, yeah? Which implies that the presentation is 20%. Yeah? But so be careful. Mohamed and I will just look at that paper in terms of, is it a completed conference paper? Yeah? We do not give you feedback on it, so your peers will. Now, from experience, I had in the past a module that was very similar drafted, that I always had one student that kind of saw that as an opportunity of just writing something and not yet doing the proper research and kind of the conduct content. This is an extremely bad strategy because you have only 2 weeks, right? So this normally, I haven't had yet a good mark afterwards with that, because the feedback that you're getting is kind of not very meaningful. It's often like, you still have to do your literature review, the research that you have presented is not complete, you don't want feedback like that. This is not very helpful, you probably can see that yourself. So if you're writing your first draft, and if you're following kind of the seminar work that we're doing, then you will have by this week already a fully completed article that will be at a very good standard. Yeah, I can just guarantee you that. Yeah? So really engage with the process. Don't leave it to the last minute. Although it's only 10%, you get 10% penalty. This is like for 10%, 100% if you have submitted it, right? So this is pretty good. Then you have the peer review submission. So this means you have actually engaged with your assigned paper. It will be anonymized, so you don't know the name. By the topics you will see, we are only 24 students here, although we are not that quite yet. You will probably recognize the topics. The point is to not write personal feedback. Again, we have a session on that, how to give constructive feedback. So I give you this right criteria, you're not marking it. It's about what needs editing. If you have references, then with what should it be combined? What needs deleting, what is bad, and what is super, what do we need more of. So this is kind of how we do the peer review. By the way, this is not a real peer review. In reality, they just absolutely write everything that is negative in a lot of emphasis. But that's a better peer review for us. And then after you submit the peer review, you get as well your peer review back, and then you have 1 week to edit it. And the final paper that is peer reviewed with the comments is 60 out of 80%, and that goes against the marking grid. Yeah? Now, what is the marking grid? This is it. Now, can you read this? Oh, it's just too small. Now, the marking grid is literally the 7 criteria that your paper is evaluated against from me and Mohamed. So we, again, peer review it, and you get the feedback, and you can use the feedback as well for the presentation to improve your paper further. But this is your final mark. So we have the presentation of the assignment. Be very careful, this is just a template. If you use a template in the Word format that I give you, then you should have 100% there. Yeah? Then the referencing to Harvard Northumbria style. Again, in the past, last semester I saw that many people struggled with this referencing. So what I've done is I've copied the references into the paper, and I've given examples so that you can actually see to reference. So if you set up a library, you want to use a software, there are softwares for that, make sure your library is correct. And I've had many submissions last semester that have used clearly citation systems, but I can just tell that the library was not up to speed, so that the library wrongly assigned. You have to be careful, softwares are only as good as the input. Yeah? It's a lesson you will learn with Mohamed Hassan. Yeah? But again, so be aware of that. Then use of literature. Now this is really a critical appraisal of the literature. This counts for 20, oh yes, just to point out, 15% is just on presentation and referencing, and if your quality of communication is good, then you have 20% already. Yeah? I'm not looking here for the academic writing style of the International Journal of Project Management. I'm looking here for sound use of English that is kind of coherent. Yeah? So don't fall in the trap and use, what is this called on Word when you use a different word? Synonym? Yeah, synonym. Don't fall in the trap and use synonym because you have a word repeatedly. And a scientific paper, we want to be precise with the wording. Yeah? So be brave and embrace the same word again if that is a word that you need to use. Yeah? So that becomes potentially quite an odd read actually. Yeah. So this is 20% for that. Then you have the use of literature. This is a critical appraisal of literature gained relevant to your topic. Now again, there's no number of literature that you have to have. If you have a meaningful paper that you're reviewing, you may have very few references, but one as a core article. Yeah, this can be the same good as if you have a topic where you just kind of pick from many topics, many papers, one specific topic because you're interested in that. Yeah? So, for example, if you look at the criticality of feminism in project organization, you will see this is actually, there was a special issue on it, but it's still a very flaky topic. So it maybe helps to just download all the papers that you can find, which will be potentially 20 to 40 papers, and then just highlight the small section that actually talks about it and summarize it in your own words. Then you have, of course, a massive reference list, but again, make it sensitive. So we have a look at that as well. Then application and testing in the work environment, organization, analysis, and presentation of the data. Now this suggests you do either research or you use a reference study. Yeah? Now you will see, when we talk about methods here too, you can use your peers to just interview them and capture what they're saying. Yeah, you can give them a questionnaire survey. We will cover that all. Yeah, so we have a few methods, or you can be very critical and think of past organizations that you have been part of and how that actually worked. But then you have to describe your observations. Yeah, so that is as well tricky. But this is as well an option, and then you will see there are many more. This is 20%. And then the evaluation with a critical analysis of application of relevance of theoretical principles to practice is 25%. So it's basically the comparison between those two. Yeah? And then if you are then concisely concluding along those lines, then you get another 50%, and that is when you have achieved 100%. Yeah? This is then very good. And if you have concluded all those, then you have 80% already. Please come still to the presentation. I've noticed last semester there was one team that was very good at the beginning and they just left one assignment piece out. This is not good. Yeah, so don't do the calculation game. But here you have potentially already 80%. And then it goes to the presentation. Did you have any questions so far to the marking, how it kind of works? Okay. Now if something comes up, let me know. Now here's kind of the wording for the article. So you are to author a research paper, review 2 papers by peer review, and finally edit your research paper in accordance to the peer reviewer's comments for the final submission. Now at that point I normally get like, what if the peer reviewers are wrong? Now, you have no idea how I feel about this. I've written a lot of peer-reviewed papers. Although this feeling may arise, it still worthwhile to actually consider them critically and implement them. Yeah. So this is a kind of collaborative effort paper. Yeah. I know it doesn't seem that way necessarily, but this is the idea. If you're 2, by the way, yeah, if you're writing as a pair a paper, there's another bonus. You just have to peer review a paper each. Yeah. So again, if you're, shouldn't really, so if you think in terms of effectiveness and workload, yeah, this may look less, but keep in mind working together has as well coordination costs. So again, there are certain implications here. Yeah.
How many peer reviews will we receive on a paper?
2. Yeah. As a maximum. Now, if we are uneven number, then Mohammed and I will become as well a peer reviewer. So this would be kind of a consequence that one would only have 1 peer review. We will accommodate that. Yeah. So task 1 is, did you have any questions at that point? So as well, in the next 2 weeks, you want to critically, no, I shouldn't be too hard, but in the next 2 weeks you want to kind of consider if you want to work with somebody together and also the article together, yeah, or if you want to do it by yourself. Yeah. Both have benefits. If you work together, you know, it's more a communicative process, kind of a group exercise, but that coordination costs. So you have to kind of come to one paper together. Yeah? So if your ideas are very divergent, then this may be quite a challenging task. If you do it by yourself, then you have the dilemma that you may not be able to kind of unfold and discuss to the same level your individual paper, except you start a discussion with somebody else. Yeah? So, but again, there would be no formal tie. Yeah? So you would have to create the discussion on the article yourself. Yeah? And any other thoughts maybe, or observations? As well with the one article, you are bound together as a pair. Yeah. So if you get the 80%, there's not one that gets only 60. It's both that get the 80. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so task 1 is a research paper produced through peer collaboration. This task is worth 80% of the module and will be submitted and assessed electronically and addresses the learning outcomes. Well, I've linked it to the learning outcomes. You may choose any topic of the weekly delivery themes. Again, so be careful. I've given you the theoretical list. You will see in your student handbook, it's like project management, leadership, culture. So it's very different. We are looking at the organizational units. So this is not individuals. Be careful. You have another module, potentially. People, right, with Alan and Michelle. So there you're talking about the individual dynamic. Now we have a lot of overlap in themes, but you will see that they are talking very positively about teams, whilst in organization it's very difficult empirically to talk positive about teams. Yeah. Now this may not make sense yet, but you will see there are different dynamics. Yeah, so they have a huge impact on our organizational objectives. Yeah. Okay, so so you may choose any topic of the weekly delivery themes, either identifying core theoretical principles, a variety of practices, and contemplative thoughts and reflections of the coming lecture syllabus. So you can as well, if you see a topic that is that you feel has maybe not so much application in your context, then take this topic on, right? So this is the most exciting stuff actually, to challenge the theory or the approaches that we have against your environment. Yeah, that will bring potentially the deepest learning. Yeah.
So within this, is there original research? Are we expected to go out and
so in that
conduct some research to support it, or just use existing?
Now, by definition, it will be original because you will either describe your past practice and then established theorem. Yeah? So you may see one of the theories that you find really fascinating and you say like, hey, I want to challenge that. And then you do your description from your observations, or you may send a questionnaire out, very simple, to kind of probe where the topic actually falls. Or you interview a few of your classmates, you know, this would be fine too. And then kind of summarize it, maybe, so I recommended some reading that falls into the same tradition of the theorems that we are covering. You can do it then systematically, and that would be by definition original. Yeah. And if this is good, there's no reason why we can't publish it. Yeah. So you will see as well that we always have that. 1 or 2 papers where students are very keen on the topic and really did the research. This is normally publishable, so we will as well encourage you, if you are happy with it, to kind of publish it in a conference or journal article. Yeah. If you like traveling, go for a conference. If you like just a prestige, then journal paper is probably better. Yeah. And then we have as well money for that. So if you go for any of the project management conferences, then I can fund it as well. So this would be possible. Other questions? Now you may have as well your own thoughts to it, so you can as well write a problem. Now we will come actually to that. So for example, if something has really puzzled you in project management, why don't we do this? Or is this really working? Or the literature is far too advanced in that area, we don't do this at all, then you may want to formulate your contemplative thoughts as a problem. This is as well an option. But again, in the student handbook, we will actually come to that. Yeah. Now, an option that you may decide, so I suggest that here as well actively, to forward your research questions for discussion to the module tutor for facilitation during the topic-related seminar. So if you have a topic where you want to kind of use me as a medium to facilitate collecting information or maybe a group discussion, then we can do that. Yeah? So if you have a topic, then just forward me your questions, and maybe where you want to go with this topic, and then maybe your research questions, but I can formulate it as well for you. Yeah. And then we would use that as a seminar basis to have a discussion, and I would forward you respective the questions and link it to the section in the books or paper maybe. Yeah. So that is an option as well. In the past, I said that last semester in Switzerland, this worked really, I've taught in the ETH Zurich. Now there the Swiss students were like, yeah, let's do this, and we had a discussion every week. But I've noticed as well, this is not everybody's style. So the Swiss students really like this discussing. Was in Sweden, they didn't like it too much. But again, this is different. And here we haven't done it either yet, so last time I was voted down sadly. But it's a possibility. Now, if you want to use a reference as a kind of setting the scene, King and Brooks have kind of described how to analyze a group debate. Again, so I would facilitate that, but you still have to kind of analyze the recording or the captured data. And they have kind of a guide, it's a 4-pager in I think somewhere in 200 or 180 to 200, there's a section on it, how to analyze group analysis. This would be very suitable if you want to have a very guided or structured route. But again, we come to that in week 4. Yeah, how do we actually analyze our data, or how do we use our description? So this is very, very structured. Yeah.
If we chose to go down that route, would it mean the entire group has to choose to go down that route?
No. This is so if you decide with your topic to go down that route, you will just forward it to me for the topic. Now there is a certain implication for the time pressure. So if you look at the topics, there is a certain dilemma. Yeah. So if you are interested, like, okay, what are the basics actually in project management that we use? ICT. Now this is very different. Yeah. In Bahrain, my PhD student, he's like, what? Augmented reality? We have this already. We work on the construction site with the glasses around, and we kind of see what it should look like, and they map actually how it's built versus what it should be. And if you tell this here, potentially my construction students, then they're like, what? This exists? No, we don't use this. So that they are worlds apart in potentially adaptation. And again, if you look at ICD in aerospace, we model already very sophisticated with aerodynamic data, and it's as well often virtual reality adaptations that are used to actually show the critical points to the engineering team or design team. Now this doesn't necessarily happen in all areas of product design. Yeah? So there are again some industries that are probably pulling. I say industries as a lecturer, you fall always in that trap. We see a lot of good practice at academics, because this is normally when people are keen to work with us. That doesn't mean that the whole industry is yet doing this. So there's as well a question, and how far are we actually, for example, with our ICT basics, maybe in your project environment. Yeah. Now again, if you want to go for something like organizational communication with globalization and democracy, or gender at work, you see that dilemma, right? So you can easily read already the books, the book chapter that is relevant for you, and you will have as well the whole student handbook. Yeah? So this is not a problem. You can do the work, but you can see it's kind of after the submission, right? Now this becomes a problem. Now, if you want to have a topic and facilitate it as kind of a session to conduct data, we can switch it forward and make it an agenda earlier. Yeah. Now again, with the earlier topics, I'm as well willing to do that up to the level of Mohammed's session. So here, the organizational learning is his last session. I know that he is very keen to accommodate if you have any of those topics, and we can move it to that week. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, but otherwise, I would encourage you to kind of target for that week. Yeah. Not that we have all the session in this week, right? This would be a nightmare. Actually, this would be really hard work. Yeah, you have 1 week to kind of do it, and you would be probably all brain drained after a debate on each topic. Yeah, the last debate would probably like, yes, we agree, it's okay. Your point is taken. Yeah, something like that. So it wouldn't be very meaningful. Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
So what you're saying is our topic could be based around the lectures. Okay, right.
Yeah, so once again, our lectures are based on the book. So this is the underlining theory. And you will see some is, it takes you, we have the lecture in a second. Yeah, so when we go into this, you will see some has really just to do with what we can actually claim we know from data and information. This becomes a very surreal argument. So this is kind of the basis of the book, but that is the basis of what we actually use in project management. So we actually organize people, we communicate. So communication be as well that we stock resources in a certain location. Now we create an order here actually. If they want to build something with something, then they have to go there, right? So it's as well communication basically. But yeah, the argument is it's really allowing you to understand what tools you actually have available for you as a project manager and what information you actually get with it. Yeah. And yeah, in the past, the profession of project management has been kind of criticized heavily for that. Yeah. But I hope you will see that when I give you the overview of the content. Yeah. So we are talking here a lot about control, power, organizing, order, interpretation, functionalism, yeah, efficiency, effectiveness. Those are the topics that we will look at a lot. Yeah. Okay, I've already run over time. Shall we have a 10 minutes break to let it sink in, and then we start with the session? Yeah? Okay. With the lecture, so again, today we are setting kind of the theoretical lens. So I understand that for most of you, this is probably a tough session, especially between 9 and 11 on the first day of the semester, yeah? And on the Monday especially. Oh, it really doesn't like my... I think it's a personal thing between PowerPoint and me. They try to tell me something. Now again, so we will have one key reading. This is kind of with assigned reading sections. So make sure you develop a nice ritual of like working through the chapter. It's not a lot, you will see. It's like normally 10 to 15 pages effective reading, and then there are a few cases and adaptations. Now, just the first chapter, I suggest you read the whole. In the following chapters, you will see I give you actually sections that I want you to read. If you want, you can read the other material too, but then you get a lot of philosophy and additional literature about social science too. It's a bonus if you want to, but not necessarily required for that module. Yeah. We have further readings as well. This is kind of more applied books. They have a lot of cases that we are using. Yeah, so you will see, I give you as well a Word document that you can use for note-taking, basically from the coming week onwards. It will be on the ELP. And basically the case studies come from those 3 books. Yeah, you can take them out as well, but again, we will cover those directly. Now, by the end of this session, this is kind of the week's objectives. I want you to understand the ideas of organizations as communicative structures of control. So I mentioned this already. Yeah? Control is often something on a individual level that is kind of perceived negative. Yeah? So it's like, oh, we are being controlled, this is not good. Depending on the time where you were brought up, or you may see it more beautifully when I think that my mom or dad controls and I'm safe and sound, and I was quite comfortable actually with the idea. Nowadays not so much anymore, but nonetheless, yeah, this is kind of the idea. Then understand the defining elements of organizations as well. So we start with a definition on that, and then I want you as well to kind of understand the definition of organizational communication. So again, this is kind of what we are doing as a project manager. So you will see as a project manager you have one big dilemma. Often your team may not actually be full-time based around you, physically, spatial. So that has a lot of implications why this becomes very meaningful, but we look at the dynamics there. And understand multiple theoretical perspectives in the field of organizational communication. This is to say we really go into kind of the social sciences, what theories that have been established over the past 400, 500 years. Yeah? So this is kind of what we're building on. As Google says, they write something on Google Scholar, stand on the shoulders of giants. Yeah? This is not to say that the people were giants, but it's a lot of people that have thought about this in a lot of deep thought before, and why shouldn't we have a look at what they thought about? Yeah? This is, of course, the idea. Okay. Now, organizations as communicative structures of control. Now, first, there's a whole history in it, and I will jump through it because in the book they have a few pages kind of covered on that. Now, a few recognitions that we may see why organizations as communicative structures of control has come about is that we have actually committed to a system that is most simply described as capitalism, as a dominant economic system. This is to say we work a lot on exchange value. Yeah, we do something that we would naturally not necessarily do by ourselves for the simple reason that we get something in return that will help us. Yeah? Now that is a very individual perspective, but you will see they actually link it back to different theorems. Now the capitalistic system has as well kind of made it popular to kind of promote an idea of specialism. Yeah? So it makes sense for you to become a project manager because there is actually a marketplace for you as a project manager. Actually, it's paid very well as well. So, yeah, that may be an initial driver. I don't want to actually holistically cover that. Yeah? Then you have as well a problem in an economic system of addressing human relations in an authoritarian setting. Now, this is really referring to being given a role in an organization. So you, as a project manager, have potentially the decision-making power for your team, your organization. Now, this means you get an authoritative role. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you should make all the decisions despite the information given from your team members? No, the despite was a negative, so no, you shouldn't. Yeah? So it's still, you should kind of relate probably to the information provided and the communication provided from your team. But again, there is an issue in this with human relations. So there is a dominance or decision-making set as a agenda. Yeah, so which is quite powerful. Now this creates, as a consequence as well, tensions between individual and organizational goals. What could that be? Let's think about that. What are tensions between individual and organizational goals? I said already, right, up front, so kind of with capitalism, we had the recognition that people suddenly did stuff that they would naturally not do, just for the sake of getting benefits in return. Yeah. But what could be the tensions between individual and organizational goals? What do you think?
An organisation structure might not recognise the individual project needs or individual person needs.
Yeah. So you as an individual have personal needs. So what are you thinking of? Do you think about time or autonomy to decide, or All of them. Okay, yeah. Okay, so you gave us already kind of a category, yeah, so there's a recognition, so there are personal needs, and they may be compromised through the organizational setting. Yeah? So the organization may be very goal-oriented, and depending, yeah, if you have here an organization-oriented reward system, your team members may want to work very hard, very long. But yeah, if you have now personally a family, yeah, and you want to go home at 5, your team may be in agony, and they're like, no, come on, 1 hour more, and then you start negotiating. Yeah, so there may be a conflict as simple as that. There may be other tensions. What other tensions can we have? Like, what could happen? Team dynamics versus individual. Have you experienced something in the past with that? What is the biggest dilemma? Of all. No. Yeah, there's probably not just one, but is there something that comes to mind? Tensions? Yeah, okay, a simple one is, what do you do in your free time after work? Can I have any examples? Sleeping. Okay, this is a good one, yeah? Sleeping. Now, certainly, your team doesn't want you to sleep at work. Yeah? So it's as simple as that. Yeah? So there's a divide. This is a simple recognition. Now, again, if you're interested, there's actually a lot written on the tensions between individual and organization goals. In particular, the individual side you will cover in the people aspect. Yeah? Now, there's a central role as well of control in resolving tensions. So this is to say you have to be responsible. So if you are a project manager and you are in control, you are the one to resolve the tensions. Yeah? So if you create an environment where everybody's tense and everybody leaves the company as soon as they can, where they, okay, I have enough money for the train ticket, I'm off. This is very bad. You will not have a successful project. Again, this is not really particular science, but you will see there's again a lot written about this. And then we have as well a history of management thought, a history of development of increasing complex forms of control. Now, what could that be? History of management thought as a history of development of increasing complex forms of control.
Is it something along the lines of using, or I don't even know how to phrase it, overcomplicating systems so that people are really felt under pressure to conform?
Yeah. So this is a format of power that is actually implicit to us. Actually, we are here for that exact reason. You have found somebody that is probably not the best coach for that, but this is basically the recognition as a project manager. If you work in a design team, and we have embraced for years kind of beautiful hand drawings. With has anybody done that with coal and pencil and like beautiful drawings? No? Yeah, okay, some people not. That was an art in itself, yeah. And if you said like, can we have a design change by midday, you made a lot of people very unhappy, yeah. So this was often they would work with, anyway. But so this had normally implications, yeah. But then there was the advancement. We had AutoCAD, yeah. So who has used AutoCAD? Yeah, yeah. Okay, some. Other drawings, we has well, the old one, Autodesk, Revit, they had as well old applications of that, yeah. So the kind of ArchiCAD was another one, and we had Sketch from Google. That was an interesting one, yeah. But the first prototypes, they were if you printed, you could see even the line shading. Yeah, that was a little bit intense. But again, yeah. So those were the ones. Now that meant that the poor person that was hand drawing was like, we are changing. You have to change your life. You have to learn and adapt. Now this is going on, right? So as a manager, this is really good for your team. If that person identifies as a design person and is learning this new skill set, this may come for free, yeah? If a person really identifies with it. Now this is very, very powerful. Yeah, we use it actually on a daily basis. Nowadays, what is the new hot thing? Now we don't do AutoCAD anymore. What do we do? Many industries already. Does anybody know? Okay, don't worry. And next week with Mohammed, you will have it. But yeah, we do actually information models and kind of digital representation. That is just a start point. Soon we will have streaming data, big data. So it will be actually models that are live, yeah? Where you can see smart, well, we call it smart, it's not that smart. It's really just a streaming device that tells you whatever is sensed on one side in terms of maybe property of the model and updating it what it actually is at the time. Yeah? But again, it means that your sensors are actually reporting what you need, so that is another interesting thing. Yeah, but this is kind of what now the AutoCAD person has to learn. Now that is quite a stretch, quite frankly, yeah, to come to digital modeling. But again, many people will do that, or there is potentially a replacement. Yeah. Now, organization does always imply control. This is old chestnuts from Tannenbaum, and he has written a whole section on it. Just to be aware of that, control always as well implies struggle. Now, this is not to say that this is really a felt struggle. Yeah, like what is a? So this may not be physical or psychological struggle, but it means that you are in a relationship where you kind of have an order given of how to communicate. Yeah? Now there is as well a dialectic process of struggle between organizational control mechanisms and employee autonomy and creativity. So as you said, sometimes, particularly in projects, we are very goal-oriented. So if somebody kind of starts thinking about very creative processes, goes out on a tangent, this may be within the time constraint or not. Yeah, so as a project manager, you have as well kind of a role of providing the focus to the project that you're delivering. So be aware. You are the one that is restricting the autonomy there. Yeah? But again, maybe more functional, and maybe there are as well processes where you can actually accommodate that. So again, but that's it's your role. Now, when we look at that, we can actually start looking at what is actually a successful project organization. So a successful project organization requires a focus on the end product that is essential. There has to be something there to see or to use, something made or built on the ground, for example, but also there has to be an ongoing focus on the process. Without the process, the product will not happen. Now that was quite lengthy. So the key here really being the highlighted elements. So it's a focus here that we have as a project manager on the process of actually bringing it together. And if you don't engage with this is an old chestnut where I mentioned before, Eurocopter did this wonderful project for me to just refer for the rest of my lifetime to. So they built a new prototype helicopter. It's a European kind of joint venture really between different companies. They wanted to build this super helicopter that can fly up in the mountains, even very thin air. So you have probably noticed people don't have a good time on Mount Everest because it's very high and struggle for air. Now the problem is the helicopters can't really fly up there due to thin air, and one of the few aerodynamic principles that kind of hinder this. So they had kind of this project and they started and they recognized, this is very, very research and technology intensive. We have to spend a lot of money in that, and they did. And the scientists came back and said, at the moment we have no materials that can actually facilitate this. Now this was very good research from a university point, very bad for the project. Yeah. Now in other words, the project that was commissioned wasn't really possible, and so they kind of reported that back to the client, and they said, so you're late with your project. And they said no, this is not completable. And then another project manager pointed out, hey, we haven't even hit the deadline, so we are not late yet. So they tried something else, but it didn't work. So it was, of course, a failure, but the point is, they hadn't even agreed a process of how to communicate this because it was a new project for them. Yeah? Now, so the contradiction continues. Without a focus on the product, the process is meaningless. Yeah? So there's this one element, if you only have a process, then you kind of miss the point too. Some perhaps get a buzz out of the process. So this is particular in project management, team working. This particular last semester, and for the 2 new ones, next semester you will meet Swedish students. They really like team working. Yeah, this is their non plus ultra. I don't know if you disagree. Would you say that? The Swedish students? Do they like teamwork?
We haven't seen them before.
Oh, but you're the French students. The French students?
Yeah, French, yeah.
They do like their teamwork. It's not always, they have different approaches. So they like the kind of team unit, but the Swedes, they really like working in teams. Now this is a different thing. So it has different, but again, so if you work in Sweden, do teamwork. It will deliver itself. Other ones are partnerships, so empowerment. Yeah, so particularly if you work as a project management with a lot of specialists, or experts, it's often very self-running. You just have to facilitate the communication, that people are in the loop, that the newest data is actually there for the people to process, to produce their part of the project. Yeah, and then it's often very, very empowering as a project manager. There's little that you can do, but I shouldn't go that far. But it's normally very, very good to be on a project as such. Yeah? And there are many more aspects that kind of make projects very interesting. But don't forget what the business is for. Often the business is to get the project completed on time, to price and quality. So this is still a dominating element. And this is as well where our power tools often sit, right? So we are often checking our team members against durations, how long they take, against how long they said they would take, price, costing. There is again an element we often hold our team accountable against it, as well the quality. So this is maybe refinements, accuracies, or how well something fits together, or maybe even complying to processes, communication processes. Have they actually updated us where they are at the moment? No, they haven't. Actually, you're not complying to our quality processes. So there may be implications. And all those things are often perceived by the team member as something additional that they feel they're actually doing. Yeah. Okay. Would you agree or disagree with this? Are you happy with this? It's a tricky one, right? It sounds good, and there's a lot of leverage, but this is just a statement. We have to challenge that empirically. Yeah? So at the moment, I haven't done anything else than stating a belief. Yeah? So be aware of that.
Have we taken into account strategic misinformation?
Yeah, exactly. So a strategic misrepresentation maybe as well part of the game. So you're already on a trail there, and we come to that. We have to kind of question our tools, if we really have the right tools. Yeah, but keep in mind, those are the common ones. Yeah, so you will find them nearly in all professional bodies of knowledge. So there's an element of that. Now, what are the different levels that we actually have? So when we come to organizational communication, the defining element is, like for our project organizations or organization, the interdependence. We come together to achieve something together. So all complex organizations make up intricate webs of communication activities. Now this is a very fancy way of saying, if you come together as a team to deliver a project, or you even have external stakeholders that you have to kind of communicate with, to kind of motivate, to achieve a shared goal, or maybe inform of the goal that you're achieving and saying like, hey, you know, you don't know yet, but you are the user of this, what do you think of that? Yeah, then this is basically where the interdependence comes from. Yeah, and you are the mastermind, or not completely, but of a large chunk of that interdependence. Yeah. Now then we have differentiation of task and functions. Now you will see, because the literature is a little bit old, yeah, we are still talking here in a few sections of division of labor. Now traditionally we don't call it that anymore. Yeah, we have normally, how do we divide work into tasks and functions? How do we do this in projects? Or what do you think? Do we do this? Maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, we have only, okay. I raced through that, but we come back to it. So division of labor traditionally was associated with your skill set that you had for life. So you became a carpenter, you became a welder, you became a blacksmith, you became an electrician, you became a teacher, you became a lecturer, you became, do you get the idea? Yeah? So you got a role, a skill set for life, and that was your identity, your profession, actually your trade more than a profession or your craft. Nowadays, we have actually started to professionalize. So we have specialist skill sets that are changing. Hence we have weird phenomena like CPD, continuous professional development. And we notice that we hold an identity that holds a certain role. So this is quite interesting. And still, although these are very tightly defined, we do a lot of stuff. And the important thing, if you do this, you have to know what you don't do. So you have to understand when to stop working. This is very important. Otherwise, you're not a professional anymore. And okay, the wonderful example there, if you're interested in it, it's a quick read, 100 pages. At that time, a PhD thesis wasn't that long. Adam Smith with manufacturing pins is a classic example, the division of labor, but again, this is very old school. This is 18th century, right? 1786 or something, yeah? So not the most art vogue script, but he kind of sorted through in manufacturing pins and needles. Now, we have a goal orientation in the organization similar to our project, so we have some overlap here with the organization communication, and we have something called control mechanisms. And at that point, I want to discuss it actually in the seminar with the example afterwards. It helps if we kind of pause at that moment. Okay, so this was quite conceptual. In the seminar, we will dive in a little bit discussion and we'll make sense of that. Yeah? Okay, any questions so far? Student handbook will be there hopefully as well today. If not, then tomorrow. You will see, don't panic, it's 100 pages. But like basically the chapters is a week, yeah. So it's 10 chapters, and it's kind of questions for note taking and gradually developing your paper, yeah. Okay, super. I see you at 3 o'clock. Happy studying in the meantime, and yeah, back at 3.